Myself, Dr. M. Laxmidevi, Associate Professor in the Department of CACDS at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today's video lecture will learn about user-defined functions in C and what are the different types of user-defined functions. So here in this video lecture, we are going to acquaint ourselves with the user functions and then what is the need of using functions and what are the different types of functions. And in functions, we have different concepts like function declaration, function prototype, and function declaration or function prototype. And then we have function call, and then we have function definition. What are the advantages of using functions, and along with some programs. So here, why we use functions, or what is the need of using functions? First, what is a function here? A function is a block of code or set of statements, you can say, which is used to perform a specific task. So coming to the user functions? So whenever we write a set of statements in a function, so that becomes a reusable code. So that means functions are also called as reusable code. So that means if you write certain set of statements inside a function, so those set of statements can be used as and when required. So functions provide modularity for programming. So what is modularity here is, so to divide a major task or larger task is divided into a smaller subtask called as modules. So user function is to perform a specific task. So coming to functions, the main aim of writing functions is to perform a specific task. So in C, structured programming language. So C is a structured programming language. It executes from top to bottom. So here main task is divided into a smaller subtask called as modules, and in modules we have functions. So what is the use of this? So if we divide the program into modules, so modularity it enhances the readability of the program, code maintenance will become easy, and length of the program will also be reduced. So suppose we can understand this with the help of an example. So suppose if you are organizing an event, then for the event we need to perform different tasks. So we need to assign, so catering arrangement is required, then decoration is required, etc. So the organizing an event can be assigned to one person, and then that is decorating. So the whole concept of organizing an event can be divided into subtasks like decoration part, then catering part, etc. So decoration part can be assigned to one person, and catering part can be assigned to another person. So here similarly, in order to develop a software also, what we are doing is we are using modules. So larger task is divided into smaller subtasks, and each subtask we develop it with the help of modules. Each subtask is called modules. Code maintenance will become easy. So use of functions is code maintenance will become easy because of functions. So when a new feature is to be added to the existing software, so suppose if the software is already developed and if you want to add some existing feature, then we can add module, or new function can be written and integrated into the software. So without disturbing the actual program, so with the help of function we can make changes to the already existing software. So whenever there is an error in the software, the corresponding function can be modified without disturbing the other functions in the software. So since we are using functions, and each function corresponding function can be modified without disturbing other functions in the software. So when you divide a larger task into subtasks, so finding out errors in the functions becomes easy. Functions or modules, that becomes easy instead of going through a large program, whole software. The use of functions in a program will reduce the length of the program. So this is also one of the advantage or need of functions, why we use functions. So same part of code, instead of writing again and again, so if we put that part of statements or set of statements inside a function, then it will reduce the length of the program. Next, coming to the definition of functions. So it is a self-contained block or a subprogram of one or more statements that performs a specific task or special task when it is called. So it is a basic building block of a C program that provides modularity and code reusability. So these are two important features of using functions. Why we need to use functions? It provides modularity, and another aspect of using functions is code reusability. So till now in our functions we have used main function. So the execution of the program, C program, starts from main function. So we declare it in this way. So whenever the compiler sees the main function, so after the main function, the set of statements are executed. So we'll see other functions also. So there are different types of functions which are available. Library functions. First one is library functions, and the next one is user-defined functions. Coming to library functions, so these are also called as built-in functions. So what are built-in functions? They have the advantage of being directly usable without being defined. So no need to define these built-in functions. These are already predefined. So library functions are predefined set of functions which are available for use. So in order to make use of these library functions, we need to include the header files. So in order to make use of these library functions, we need to include the header file. So a user need not understand the internal working of the functions. So it provides library functions. Library functions, we have the concept of abstraction. That is, the internal details, the internal working details of the function are hidden. So these are not visible to the user. One can only use the functions but cannot change or modify them. So we cannot change or modify the library functions, we can only use them. So some of the examples of library functions are scanf, printf, getc, putc, getchar, putchar, etc. Apart from this, we have also seen gets, puts function. Then in the previous video lecture, we have seen related to string functions, we have strlen, strcat, strcmp. So all these are built-in functions or library functions. So these are defined in string.h header file. So in order to make use of these functions, we need to include the header file string.h. And in order to use the functions printf, scanf, so we need to include the header file stdio.h. So this is all about library functions. Next, coming to user-defined functions. User-defined functions, from the name itself, we can say that these are defined by the user. So as per the requirement of the user. So what task the function has to perform, depending upon that, the function can be defined. So these are called as user-defined functions. A user can modify the functions according to the requirement. Here there is no concept of abstraction, because the internal working, the user itself or the programmer writes the functions. So therefore these are visible to the programmer. The user can modify the functions according to the requirement. The user understands the internal working of the function. Since here the user can understand the internal working of the function. Now coming to different elements of user-defined functions. So these are the different elements which we need to acquaint with in order to use user-defined functions. First one is function prototype. Next one is function definition. And the last one is function call. So in order to actually use a function, so we need to first define a function, and then so these are the different elements which are essential in order to use a function. First one, let us see function prototype. So what is function prototype? So till now we have seen that in the main function, the first section which is there is declaration section or declaration part. So in the declaration part, what we do is we declare the variables, type of variables. So this declaration, with this declaration, the compiler will automatically understand that A is a variable of type integer, and it will be allocated, this A variable will be allocated 4 bytes of memory. So this is a variable declaration. Next, Coming to similar concept can be extended to function prototype or function declaration also. So here what it does is function must also be declared so that the compiler can ensure that this type of function is available. So in function prototype, it declares the function name. In function prototype, these are the points to be included. First is function name should be there, return type, and then parameter list. So syntax for function prototype is return type. Then we have the function name, and then we have the parameter list, followed by semicolon. So it is usually placed at the beginning of the program or in a header file. Usually we place this function prototype before the main function. Function prototype, what it does is it enables the compiler to verify that the function is correctly called before its actual definition is encountered. So in order, if there is any mismatch, so compiler can automatically because of this function prototype, the compiler can verify that the function is defined correctly. So function prototype, it may or may not be required. So that we'll see with the help of programs. So first, coming to the syntax, function prototype, so is similar to function declaration, is nothing but function declaration. So as we need to declare a variable before using it, so similarly we need to declare a function before using the function. So in this syntax is return type, function name, and inside the brackets we have the parameters. So parameter list, which is separated by comma, at the end we have a semicolon. So here, for example, consider this is a function prototype. So this tells the compiler that there is a function ABC, name of the function is ABC, and return type of the function is integer, and it takes two arguments or two parameters. So this is the data type of parameter 1. So this is parameter 1, this is parameter 2. So A and B are parameters, and this is the data type of the parameters. So we can also declare the function prototype in this way. So we can skip these variables or parameters. Name we can skip, just mentioning the type of the parameter is sufficient. Next, function definition. So function definition, what it consists of actual implementation of the function's code. So it specifies what the function does when it is called. So syntax for function definition is return type, then function name, and inside the brackets, inside the parenthesis, we have parameter 1 type. Here we have the type of the parameter, and then here the name of the parameter. So here also we have the list of parameter list, and inside the curly braces we have body of the function. So this body of the function includes set of statements, so for which this function is the specific task which is required to be performed by this function. So that is given here, or those set of statements are written inside this body of the function. Next is function call. So what is function call? Function call is a statement that instructs the compiler to execute the function. So with the function call is required in order to actually invoke the function. So function call is a statement that instructs the compiler to execute the function. So in order to invoke the function, a function call is required. So in a function call, the function name is required, and then the parameter name. Parameters are used in the function call. So whenever in the program there is a function call, the control is automatically transferred to the function definition. So let us understand all these elements of user-defined function with the help of one simple program. So this is how so these are the points which we have discussed till now. Function prototype. So as we require declaration for variables, similarly we need to declare the function. So for that, function prototype includes return type, name of the function, and then parameter list. So parameter list consists of parameter name, parameter type, and as well as parameter name. Next, we need to function call. So inside the main function, whenever we need to use the function, we need to call the function. So actually, we need to call the function. That is done with the help of this function call. So whenever there is a function call in the program, in the main function, control is automatically transferred. Control is transferred to the function definition. So in the function definition, so we have the return type of the function, the name of the function, and then the parameters. So also, and then parameters. Let us understand these different concepts or these different elements of user defined functions with the help of one program here. So here first we need to include the header file in order to make use of the printf and scanf function. These functions are defined in stdio.h header file. So these are the built-in functions which we are using. Printf is the built-in function. Next, this statement is function prototype. So in the function prototype includes return type. So here the return type of this function is integer and name of the function is add numbers, and parameters we have, there are two parameters. It takes two parameters. So parameters, you can say that these are nothing but inputs. So these are the inputs to the function which are given in order to give the output. So the parameters which it takes is, there are two parameters. Both the parameters are of integer type. Here parameter name, the first parameter is A and the second parameter is B. So if you write in this way also, it is not wrong. You can skip the name of the parameters also, int comma int. So this declares that it takes two integers as arguments or parameters. It takes two parameters as input. So next we have the int main function. Next, inside the int main function, we have declared two integer variables, num1 and num2. So as soon as we declare this num1 and num2, so 5 is assigned here, and in num2 we have the value 10. So there is corresponding address also for this num1 and num2, so that we are not writing. Next statement which is executed is this line. So this is the actual function call. So function call is done by name of the function and then parameters, specifying the parameters. No need to specify the data type of the parameters. So just specifying the parameters, parameter name is enough. And here also no need to specify the return type of this also, return type of this function. Just name of the function and then parameter name. So that is enough, followed by semicolon. So then whenever the compiler sees this statement, automatically the control is transferred here. So this is the calling function. So this is called as calling function, and this one is the called function. So there is communication between the function, calling function and the called function. Whenever the compiler sees this line, so control is transferred to this line. So this is function definition, actually where we actually define what the function is doing. So here function definition, the return type is integer. So whenever the control is transferred here, the compiler will check this function definition first line with this one, function prototype. Here it is return type is integer, here also it is integer. So your name of the function should match, return type should match, name of the function should match, and then arguments also should match. The parameters data type also should match, integer and integer. So therefore integer and integer. So whenever, if there is any mismatch, then there will be an error. So here there is no mismatch. So therefore the control is transferred here, and then when the control is transferred here inside the function, so here we have declared another variable sum. So inside this function, so this variable is local to this function. So here we have declared a variable sum. Sum, what it does is, it will calculate the sum of the A and B. So actually what we are doing with the help of calling function is num1 and num2 values. So these are passed to A and B. So num1 and num2 values are passed to the variables A and B, which are declared in this function definition. So A value, num1 is 5. So again a copy of this A and B is created. So these are local variables. So A and B, inside A, num1 value is copied, and inside B, num2 value is copied, 5 and 10. Now the sum is equal to A plus B. So add these two values and that value is assigned to sum. So return sum. So this function is returning some value. The return type of this is an integer. So this is also an integer value. So it will return integer type data to the calling function again. Now after this line, so whenever the function sees return statement, so that means that is the end of the function. So after that, the control is again transferred here. After this, control is transferred here. So here int result, so we have declared a variable. So this value of sum is copied to the variable result. So here we have declared a variable result integer type. So this value of sum is copied to the variable result. So that is also an integer type. Now result is equal to 15. So therefore, now as soon as the control is transferred here, so no longer these variables will be available. So A and B values, so A, B values will not be available, and also some value is returned to this function, and that value is assigned to the variable result. Now if you print the value of result here in this main function, you will get the result as 15. So output of this is 15. Here also you have return 0. So return whenever the compiler sees return 0, so that means the program is, that is the end of the program. So in this way, we can understand these different elements of a function, user-defined functions, with the help of this simple program. So here in this example, we have taken a function add numbers. So add numbers is a function name, and it is defined to take two integer arguments. So the two integer arguments are A and B, and it returns the sum. So it is declared using a function prototype before the main function. So the other way also you can write. We can also skip the prototype. Instead of writing the prototype, we can directly write all these statements. We can write the function definition before the main function. So, and then you can skip this function prototype. So it is declared using function prototype before the main function. Add numbers function is then called in main function with the parameters num1 and num2. So the parameters in the calling function, so these are called as actual parameters, num1 and num2. Num1 and num2, these are called as actual parameters. And these A and B, so A and B are called as formal parameters. So the name parameters and arguments, these are used interchangeably. Here add numbers function is then called in main function with the parameters num1 and num2, and return value is stored in the result variable. Finally, sum is printed using the printf statement. Now functions, so what are the different parameter list which the function can take as input? So functions can have more complex parameter list, including different data types, then pointers, or even no arguments at all. So in the function definition, we can include, so a function can be defined without any arguments or without any parameters, and a function can have no return type also. So that is depending upon this, we have, depending on the return type and parameters, we have different types of functions. So that we'll see later on. Similarly, return type can be different based on the requirement of the user. So return type can be different based on requirement of the user. Next function, return type. So functions in C can return a value back to the calling code using the return statement. So whenever in the function definition, return statement is encountered, so that indicates the end of the function. And then control is automatically transferred again to the calling function. So return type of the function is specified in the function declaration or function prototype. So when a function is called, it performs its operations and optionally return a value using a return statement. So this return statement can or cannot be there in the function. Return type must match the declared return type in the function prototype. So as we have seen, the compiler will check whether the return type of this, and here whatever is declared here and whatever is there in the function definition, both are same or not. Otherwise it will give error. Now classification of functions based on arguments and return values. So till now, just now we have seen that in the function definition we have the parameters or arguments. The name parameters and arguments are used interchangeably. So if the function is having arguments or it is taking inputs, so then it is a function with arguments. And if the function is not taking any inputs or argument or any parameters, then it is a function without any arguments. And based upon the return value also, so these are the different types of functions which can be classified, which are available. Function with no arguments and no return value, that means it does not take any input and it does not return anything. Function with no arguments and with return value, it does not take any input and it returns some value to the calling function. Functions with argument and with no return value, that means it takes the arguments or it takes the inputs, but but it does not return anything to the calling function. Functions with arguments and with return value, that means it takes the inputs and it returns values and it returns something to the calling function. So let us see in detail each of the different types of functions available, that is user defined functions with some program. So functions with no arguments and no return value. So here data is neither passed through the calling function nor sent back from the called function. So there is no communication between or there is no data transfer, you can say. So no data is passed from the calling function, that is no input is given from the calling function to the called function, and also no output is sent or it doesn't return, the function doesn't return anything to the calling function also. There is no data transfer between the calling and called function. So this is a program to illustrate function with no arguments and no return value. So as you can see here, so this is the main function. So we have set of statements and this one is the function definition. So in function definition, so this is a function with no arguments. So there are no parameters here, and return type. So when there is no return type, no return value, then we need to include this, whenever the function doesn't return anything, so data type is void. So in this function, this is a function prototype. So in this way also we can declare a function prototype. Just before using the function, we need to declare the function prototype. So this is a function prototype followed by semicolon. So in the function prototype, we need to specify the return type of this function and then the name of the function. And so here we don't have any arguments or parameters, so therefore it is left blank, or you can write void also. Next, this is a function call. So in the function call, so this is a function call. So function call is done by using name of the function, and then so this does not have any parameters, so therefore it is left blank. So whenever after this line the control is transferred here, so here whatever the statements are written inside this function, so that will be executed. So output of this is, so just it is printing a string on the screen by using puts function. So have a nice day. So this is the output of the function. So whenever the control is transferred here, so this line will be printed. So after that, it does not return anything. Then after this, control is again transferred here. Then that indicates, after that we don't have any statements which are written after this function called, after the function call. So that is the end of the program. Next, to functions with no arguments and with return value. With no arguments means the function does not take any inputs, but it will return something. It will have a return value. Here both the calling and called function, they partly communicate with each other. So let us see the program for this. So for example, so this is the main function, and here we have, this is a function definition. So these are the variables which are local to this function, main function, and these are the variables which are local to this function sum, x, y and z. So first a and s variables are declared, and this is the function prototype. Function prototype. Then after that, so it has some return value. It has with return value, it does not take any arguments. So this is a function with no arguments means, so it will not take any input. So there are no inputs or no parameters inside the function, inside the parameter list. So name of we call this function is called by using name of the function, and then in this way. So this is a function call. This is a function call. So whenever there is a function call, control is transferred here. So control is transferred here. So it will the compiler will check this with the function prototype. So int and int both are same. So therefore this function will be executed. So here three value variables are declared x, y and z, and here itself printf enter the three values. So scanf, with the help of scanf function, we are reading the values of x, y and z at the location specified by the name x, y and z. So suppose the user is entering some 10, 20 and 30. So these are the values taken from the user in this function definition, and what it is returning is, it is returning the sum of all the three values. So 10 plus 20 plus 30, 30, 40, 50, 60. So output of this is 50, 60, sorry. So return 60 means, so this 60 is assigned to the variable s. So here s is equal to 60 now. And if you try to print the value of s, so since 60 is an integer value, so percentage %d is the format specifier, so you will get the output as 60. So in this way, this is a function with no arguments. So here we have not specified any arguments here, and it has some return type with return value. Function with arguments and with no return value. So function with arguments means calling function will have parameters, but the called function will not return anything, will not return any value to the calling function. In these functions, arguments are passed through the calling function. The called function operates on the values, but no result is sent back. So for example, so this is a function prototype we have declared. Function prototype. So this is a function which takes two inputs, that is there are two arguments or two parameters you can say, and it does not return anything. So that's why void is the type. So this is a function prototype. So similarly, in the main function, so we have declared two variables a and b. So these variables are local to this function, main function a and b. Enter the numbers. So by means of scanf, we are reading the values of a and b in this function. Suppose we read the values 5 and 5 in this function. Then after that, these are passed as parameters, or these are passed. So these parameters are passed to the function. This is the calling function. So in the calling function, a, b values are passed to the variables x and y. So these x and y are defined in this function definition. So these a and b values are passed to the variables x and y, which are declared in the function definition. So a copy of these variables, a copy of these variable values will be created again in this whenever this function is invoked. So x and y will have 5 and 5. So a value is passed to x and b value is passed to y. So here printf statement, there is only one statement which is executed. So x and y is added, the addition of x and y. So x and y of addition is, so this will be printed, output of this is 10. So 10 is the output here. Then after this, control is transferred here. So there is nothing to be printed. So after this, that will be the end of the program. Next, this is another type of function. Functions with arguments and with return value. So here we have data is transferred from the calling function to the called function, as well as the called function will return, will have return value to the calling function. So data is passed through the calling function and sent back from the called function. So this is a program to understand this type of function. So here we have declared three variables a, b and s. So a, b variable, so all the three are integer variables. So by using scanf function, the user will read the program. By using scanf function, a, b values are read. Suppose we enter 5 and 6. So a has 5 and b has 6. Then control is transferred here. So this is a function call. So whenever there is function call, control is transferred here. So after this, control is transferred here. So a and b values are passed to the variable x and y. So now x is equal to 5 and y is equal to, so these x and values, so these x and variables are created somewhere in the memory. So x and y, x value is 5 and y value is 6. So here we have declared one more variable z. So what it does is it gives the addition of x and y. So z is equal to 11. Z is equal to 11. So in this we have a return statement. So it is returning the value of z to the calling function. So this z value is assigned to the variable s. Now s is equal to 11 now. The output of this is the printf statement. So output of this is sum is 11. So in this way we can say that this is a function with arguments and with return value. So here data is passed from the calling function and also data is sent back from the called function. So in this way we have seen the concept of user defined. We have seen in this video lecture, we have discussed the concept of user defined functions. What are the different elements of user defined functions? That is function prototype, function call, then function definition, and what are the different types of functions based upon the return type and parameters. So in the next video lecture, we'll discuss some more topics of C programming. Until then, thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.